What's going on, everyone? Ageless Eternal here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going over Doom: The Dark Ages. Doom is an iconic franchise since the very first one. It's had some rough edges, such as Doom 3, where the hype, the fun seemed to die off. That was a very controversial Doom game. And now here we are today with Doom: The Dark Ages. I don't know what to say. The 3 seems to not be the lucky number for Doom games. I know this isn't Doom 3 in the sense of it doesn't have 3, but this is the third of the soft boot sequels, and frankly it's also the weakest in my opinion. It's still fun, but when you go back to how the creators of Doom talked about Doom, they talked a lot about focusing on gameplay and just shooting things rather than necessarily the story. Now, Doom: The Dark Ages is still very fun to play, but it does feel like the gameplay's been downgraded a bit from Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, and it can be a little bit frustrating at times. On the other hand, the story is much more of a focus. Like, there's more cutscenes, there's more dialogue, there's more things going on. Not that there wasn't a story in, say, Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal, but let's say the details, you had to find the details, whereas a few more details that you might have found through breadcrumbs in lore tablets are now in cutscenes. Going back to the gameplay, there's a few issues that just make it less fun than Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. It's a little hard to describe because a lot of the issues I have with Doom: The Dark Ages is that it feels like it's trying to play a little bit closer to Doom Eternal's speed. Or maybe not the speed, but have like the same amount of enemies in all around, let's say, the hub that you're fighting in, the little arena that you're fighting in. Whereas in 2016, the little arenas would be smaller, and you know that was important because unlike Doom Eternal with the bigger arenas and the larger amount of enemies, you had a dodge that was available to you at pretty much all times, and it was very intuitive. In Doom 2016, you don't have the dodge, you have a shield. Now, maybe this is just because I'm playing on one of the harder difficulties, but this system, it's really upsetting to the shield system. I like the shield. I like throwing it around like Captain America. I like running and jumping and crashing into everyone, or shield bashing an enemy from 15 yards away. But the problem is your movement is greatly hampered. And in harder difficulties, you can die in 1 to 2 hits. Now that's par for the course in any game. But I think the problem is you have 0 dodge, and you rely almost entirely on your shield to take the damage. Or if you're going to flat out avoid the damage, because the shield breaks, right? So there are some hits that you need to just avoid. Problem is, if you want to strafe left or you strafe right, you can't move the maximum amount of speed to avoid the incoming damage. So what do you often have to do in this game? At least for me personally, I have to turn 180 degrees and start running the other way so I can avoid all the incoming damage that's about to hit me, and then I wait for my shield to recharge. And that's a big problem in terms of game flow. In Doom Eternal, I never had this issue because I had a dodge. Now, could I dodge back to back to back? Not exactly. There was, of course, like a little brief period of time, but here's the thing. You only have the shield. The shield can only parry certain attacks because it's not entirely timing based. It's also type based. You can only parry green attacks. And that becomes a problem when you need to block a bunch of incoming damage, but it's not parryable, which means it will use the shield's durability, which means your shield will break eventually, especially if it's a tough boss. And then when your shield breaks, that breaks the flow of combat because now you need to run. Specifically, away from what you're fighting, because you can't strafe left or right. You can a little bit, but again, you don't get the maximum amount of speed as you would be if you're facing one direction and choose to sprint in that direction. If you strafe left and right, you will be at a drastically slower speed, and you probably will get hit. And that just takes me out of the combat because it disrupts, again, the flow. Another sad thing that was taken away is glory kills. They're kind of there, but I honestly think they shouldn't have been taken out. Or if they did want to have the option to have glory kills away, that should have been something that was in the options or in the menu. Because they kind of did keep them, but in the worst way possible. If you really want the glory kills, here's what you need to do. You need to sprint, you need to jump in the air, and then you need to hope that you're at an acceptable height for the game system to determine, oh, he's trying to do a glory kill. And then, maybe 50-50 you'll get the animation, right? It's kind of a coin toss, because it doesn't work all the time. Otherwise, you'll just do this little quick punch or kick, and then your enemy will explode and go away. Or die. But that's not as satisfying as the old glory kills. Now, again, I understand for some people, maybe it slows down their gameplay. Maybe it's like it's a break to their flow, because it's essentially a pause. It's a stop from the combat. It stops everything just to do that animation, and I get that. But again, I think it should have been an options. It should have been an option in the menu, because without it, it just doesn't feel the same. You know, it's just not the Doom I love. Now, I still love what we have here. It's still a very fun game, but it's not quite the same. Those animations were so brutal. They were so enjoyable. I spent lots of time trying different angles to see if I could get different animations. My absolute favorite are from 2016's Doom. I kind of felt like Doom Eternal downgraded the glory kills just a little bit when they added that little, I don't know, Wolverine claw at in Doomslayer's side, because it was a little bit less brutal and it was a little bit more clean. It was more like a chop or a cut, and you would slice things off. Whereas in Doom 2016, you know, that was my absolute favorite, because you would get bones crunching and you would break arms. And anyway, moving on, back to Doom the Dark Ages. Okay, so here's the verdict. If you like Doom 2016, this one is still going to be fun. It's still going to be good to play. You'll still probably have a good time. If you need something more like Doom Eternal, well, I'll say this. It's somewhere in between Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, but from my personal taste, it feels like the elements that they meshed together between those two games, they did in a way that doesn't quite fit as well. For me, this feels like a downgrade from Doom Eternal, and in some ways, not always, but in some ways, even from Doom 2016. It feels like it tried to do a bit of both, but that the elements that they chose in trying to do both kind of messed up some systems and don't work as well. As I've said, it feels like they wanted the bigger amount of enemies in Doom Eternal, but also they slowed down the gameplay to be closer to Doom 2016. And as I've said, that doesn't seem to fit well. But the game is still fun. And if you prefer Doom 2016 to Doom Eternal, you may really like this game. So absolutely give it a try. If you prefer Doom Eternal, still give it a try, but expect to enjoy it a bit less than you enjoyed maybe even Doom 2016. Anyways, these are my thoughts. This is what I think about Doom the Dark Ages. You know, I'll give it credit, the story, I do like the story element part of this. It's just the gameplay for me is what feels like it was downgraded. But like and subscribe, or dislike, comment, tell me if I'm right, if I'm wrong, tell me what you think. Anyways, Ageless Eternal out. See you next time.